and some of the top prospect lists and what Brewers have found themselves on that. Starting with non-roster invitees, just real quick, in case you're not familiar, what is a non-roster invitee? What is an NRI, as we call it in the industry? Non-roster invitees are the extra guys in spring training, all the guys that you have that are, quote-unquote, auditioning to be on the Brewers in 2025 or find a spot on the 40-man roster. That is why they're called non-roster. So, meaning, if they were to make the team or one day they get called up later in the season, that they would have to be added to the 40-man roster, which currently is full. There would need to be a corresponding move at the start of the season if you're going to add somebody to the 40-man roster. However, the other thing about the 40-man roster is right now, nobody is eligible to be on the 60-day injured list. Why is that significant? In case you're not familiar, the 60-day injured list temporarily gives you an extra 40-man roster spot. So somebody like Robert Gasser, who obviously is not going to pitch at the start of the season, he would be a candidate that goes to the 60-day IL once the season actually begins. Your 60-day IL actually opens when you set your opening day roster. So that's something that you have to calculate and think about. So while the Brewers technically have 40 on their 40-man roster, if somebody were to need to be added to the Major League opening day roster that's not on the 40-man roster from one of these non-roster invitees, that's a spot that they could come from in the fact that they are going to put Robert Gasser on the 60-day injured list. Now, there's a whole bunch of non-roster invitees that you're never going to hear about and that are just minor league depth. And there are a few that maybe you're like, maybe this guy was really good a few years ago and maybe he can catch a lightning in a bottle. But at the same time, there's always a few that shock us. And I think of last year, Jared Koenig comes to the top of mind for me. Jared Koenig, not only was he really not on my radar in the slightest, I tried to make it a point to talk to every guy during spring training, including those non-roster guys that you know probably aren't going to make the team coming out of spring training. It can get pretty difficult. But Jared actually was the first pitcher to pitch a game in spring training last year. And we should have known at the time, and that's also like part of the chaos of spring training is that, especially with last year's case, there was so much unknown about that team. Like, how's it going to go with Murph? How's it going to go with the outfield? Is Churio going to make the team? Who's healthy? There's so much else going on that, like, a middle reliever that you haven't seen in the organization previously wasn't necessarily at front of mind. But the point of the matter is, Jared Koenig was a non-roster invitee, did not make the team out of spring training, and then by the end of the year was one of the most important relievers on the team. So it just goes to show you that while we may not know a lot about these guys right now, and some folks will really focus on a certain few and say, this guy's got a chance to make the team, or this guy's going to really help you out down the road, we don't know yet. But at the same time, I listed 3 guys that I'm really going to focus on in spring training that I'm excited to see with my own eyes. The first one I listed as a non-roster invitee is first baseman Ernesto Martinez Jr. Ernesto's a Cuban. He is a ginormous human being. He is 6'6", 250 pounds. He's 25 years old, a bit of a late bloomer as far as Latin prospects go and within the Brewers organization. He was somebody that I think of the 2020 canceled minor league season really impacted, right? He was just getting acclimated stateside, and he was with a different organization at the time, and just getting acclimated stateside, then boom, you lose an entire year of development. And this may seem simplistic to say, and it impacted everybody in minor league baseball. And there are a few prospect writers, we'll talk about that here in a second, prospect writers that feel minor league baseball is still recovering from a completely canceled season, and not just minor league baseball, but of course college baseball was canceled in 2022. But the fact is, when you lose a year of development at that age as somebody who's an international prospect, it can stunt your growth very quickly. But it seems like he has rebounded. The reason why I'm excited for Ernesto, massive left-handed hitter, ginormous dude. Not necessarily a power threat, but part of that has to do with him playing in Biloxi in the Southern League, a really hard place to hit home runs, especially for a left-handed hitter. He hit 30 doubles last year in the Southern League and only 12 home runs, but he had an OPS north of 830, which you would hope so as a 24, 25-year-old, but at the same time, we talk about that development being stunted. Somebody that is depth, he's not on the 40-man roster, that is depth when you think of all the options the Brewers have at first base right now in their minor league system. Tyler Black, Jake Bauers re-signed a non-roster and a minor league deal, and then you've got Ernesto and you've got Wes Clark. You've got options at depth at first base for the time being. Next guy is Anthony Siegler. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Could not get clarity on the pronunciation of his last name. Utility man coming from the Yankees and a minor league free agent, signed a minor league deal with the Brew Crew. Last season, stop me if you've heard this before, the Brewers signed a minor league free agent that has an elite eye, that knows how to work the strike zone, and is also an elite base runner. Last season, he had a 15% walk rate, which is elite, and only an 18% strikeout rate, well better than league average. Furthermore, in Double-A, he had 29 stolen bases and only 3 caught stealings, all while having a 118 WRC+. Now, we can see the batting average. I understand folks hesitate at seeing a 240 batting average. Batting average is just not the same as it once was as far as what we value. I am still going to lobby. I might lean into this even harder this season than maybe I have in years past. I'm leaning hard into the belief that for me, on-base percentage is now the first thing of the slash line that I see. If we flip on-base percentage and batting average, now I understand that ruins OPS, but the point of what I'm trying to say here is how often do you get on base? And when you're a base stealer like Anthony Siegler seems to be, that is important depth and somebody that a lane that the Brewers have found success in as far as former Yankee prospects, a la Blake Perkins, and now signing Caleb Durbin in the Devin Williams trade. So that's another guy I'm keeping an eye on. Non-roster, depth, but I'm really excited to see him play all over the infield as somebody that the Brewers can use in AAA, I imagine, to see what they have with him coming over from the Yankees. And then finally, this guy's actually on the roster. But Elvin Rodriguez had 88 innings in Japan last season. The reason why that's significant as a reliever, he threw 88 innings in 49 games. So he's throwing multiple innings virtually every time he's out there. Not necessarily a strikeout guy, but I also remind you, it's hard to get strikeouts in the Japanese league. It's also hard to give up home runs. So you only give up 1 home run in those 88 innings because, well, home runs aren't as prevalent in Japan as they are here stateside. But he still managed to get just shy of 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. And I know that doesn't sound that significant. He was in the 70s in strikeouts. But the reason I say that, he's a sinker baller. So if you're getting strikeouts as a sinker ball guy, we know how much the Brewers love having, ground ball type pitchers. And previously in his career, he's not really been known as a ground ball guy. So he's got velo, he's got attempts to be on this team, and he's on the 40-man roster. So technically not an NRI, but he's also somebody I'm going to be monitoring that has a shot to make this bullpen. And we have an FAQ later on in the show about who's going to be making the team on the bullpen. Now, quickly, I want to shift gears in this segment into the prospect list that came out this week. And let me issue a disclaimer here right at the start. Prospect lists are not gospel. These vary between the main publications, Baseball America, MLB.com, The Athletic put out their list, Fangraphs has not put out their list yet, but those are the 4 main ones we use. Baseball Prospectus does a very nice job as well. Now, the reason I say this is scouting and prospect list is extremely subjective and extremely qualitative. And it's scouted, obviously. And that's the art of scouting. We don't know how to project these guys perfectly. Sometimes we nail it, sometimes we miss it. But that's the peril of being a scout and the peril of being a talent evaluator. And the way that these lists are put together are these fantastic writers and fantastic resources that they have at their disposal, picking up the phone, talking to scouts, talking to rival agencies. And generally, what they're doing is when, let's say Keith Law picks up the phone and calls Tom Flanagan or calls Matt Arnold or calls Matt Klensack, calls these guys and like, I want to talk to you about other players in the league, not necessarily just your players too. And then you're able to get to a consensus and with all the sourcing that you have and you make these lists. Now, with that being said, Jesus Made has been flying up the boards as a 17-year-old who has not played stateside. The reason why that is significant is because all of these writers who are putting Jesus in their top 100 know very well what they are doing. And it is risky to put Jesus Made, who has not played in the Arizona Complex League, who has not played in low A ball. He's only played in the Dominican Summer League. And folks who are familiar with the Dominican Summer League know it cannot be pretty sometimes. It is certainly a raw, sometimes ugly version of baseball. A lot of walks, a lot of poor approaches at the plates, some sloppy defense. There is a lot going on in the DSL. But for the fact that all of these publications put him in the top 100, the ones that we're citing here, Baseball America, MLB.com, and The Athletic, goes to show you there's a fire there to this smoke. There is something burning that Jesus Madej is going to show us, whether it be in spring training. I'm excited to see him. He's not a non-roster invitee. He'll only be coming over from minor league camp. But I'm excited to see what he can do, I imagine, up in Appleton, right, with the Timber Rattlers. And the Brewers have always been aggressive in promoting players. Now, hopefully he ends the season in Appleton. I bet he starts the season in Carolina, down there in the final season with the Mudcats in Zebulon. So Jesus was as high as 17 on MLB.com's top 100. But Baseball America had him at 56, and then The Athletic had him at 78, but all had glowing things to say about him. Toolsy shortstop. They believe he can stick there one day, showing a refined approach well beyond his age. Remember the name, and yes, it looks cool. Jesus made. It's not how you pronounce it, but that's pretty cool. Next up, Jefferson Caro. Still in the top 50 on most of these lists. In fact, all the way up to number 15 on The Athletic as the top-ranked catcher still, despite missing all of last season with a torn labrum in his right shoulder. He is on the 40-man roster. He seems to be the heir apparent to the backstop if he has a full, healthy season this year in AAA. That being said, it's a throwing shoulder labrum injury, and one of his best tools was his arm. Let's make sure he's healthy before we jump ahead. But 43 on Baseball America, 47 on MLB.com, and 15 on The Athletic. Next, Jacob Misiorowski, and this was all over the board. Number 100 on MLB.com, number 44 on Baseball America, and number 87 on The Athletic. A lot of this has to do with his control, and we know this. We've talked about it all season long. Could he be called up? A lot of folks still feel he could be a real big league contributor as a reliever right now, but I understand where the Brewers are coming from. Let him be a starter until he proves to you he can't be a starter. He's got two 80-grade pitches, according to MLB.com, his fastball and his slider. You can let him try to figure it out as a starter, but if it isn't going to work out, let's max you out for one inning and let him become a reliever, and we could see him in the big leagues later this year. Finally, the last one on here that was a consensus between those publications is Cooper Pratt. And you may not know the story of Cooper Pratt, but out of Mississippi, a high schooler, was going to go to Ole Miss, but the Brewers went over slot to sign him in the 6th round, and industry evaluators said, wait, the Brewers signed him? He was going to go to Ole Miss. No one thought he was going to actually, go beyond the 2nd round. Like, oh, if you didn't sign him there, you're not going to be able to get him to come to campus or get him to come to Brewers. He was going to go to campus. Well, the Brewers signed him for over slot, and now he's a consensus top 100 prospect as a minor league Gold Glove winner at shortstop. So remember the name Cooper Pratt. He is also a non-roster invitee now, not with a legitimate chance to make the team, but somebody that I imagine will get plenty of looks in AA and maybe even AAA by the end of the season as a young infielder. So that's a quick little synopsis of maybe a little bit of a prelude into what we're going to be looking in deeper into spring training once we get boots on the ground to see what's happening there. Up next, let's do some hot stove activity, talk about what's happening around the league. The old mule is gone. We'll talk about Wade Miley signing with the Reds and more on WTMJ.
Back with more Brewers Weekly after this. Join Greg Matzik and Jessica Ty on Wisconsin's Midday News.
The Wisconsin National Guard website is down in compliance with President Trump's executive order.
U.S. authorities arrested more than 500 migrants and deported hundreds in a mass operation.
Bringing you trusted and relevant news every weekday from 11 to 1 p.m.
I'll be honest, I'm trying not to see the coyote. The deer and the birds, yep, I want to see those. The coyote, you can stay over there, buddy.
Only on WTMJ.
When your pipes burst, water heater's leaking, drains backing up, or whatever your plumbing problem is, the reliable plumbers at Quality are on hand 24/7 to fix your plumbing problem with fully stocked vehicles and lightning-fast response times. This is Anthony Zanevsky. Call Quality first and get the signature service you deserve to fix your plumbing problem ASAP.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. I don't have to tell you that a lot of dust and other junk collects in your ductwork. And it doesn't just sit there. It's blowing around in your home, and that jeopardizes your home health. The commercial industrial duct cleaning system we use at Quality darn near sucked the shirt right off our tech the first time he used it. Believe me, not everybody has this powerful of a system. It's unlike any other. At Quality, you get the best duct cleaning, period. So call Quality first for your duct cleaning needs.
For the signature service you deserve.
AccuNet Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 255368.
This is Chief Market Watcher Brian Wickert. Well, a lot of folks have buying a home on their New Year's resolution list, and while national news headlines talk about the inventory of homes for sale being a lot higher this year, I'm afraid that's just not the case in most of Wisconsin. So how do you make your offer stand out from the others so that someone else doesn't end up sleeping in your dream home? Well, it takes a team of a good real estate agent and a mortgage lender who has all the tools and techniques to help make your offer as attractive as possible in the eyes of that seller. Sure, you can go with a flimsy, unimaginative bank pre-approval, or you can present your offer with an AccuNet, rock-solid, fully verified, and guaranteed pre-approval that might also come with the phrase that really makes sellers happy: no appraisal required. We'll also help you understand exactly what it means in dollars and cents if you do decide to offer over asking or give that seller some appraisal wiggle room. All you have to do to get started with your rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval is click on the blue button at AccuNet.com. That's ACCUNET.com.
This is Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
I'm Dominic Cotroneo going to the top of the hour here on WTMJ. We've got some frequently asked questions coming up here in just a moment. But right now, let's talk a little bit about the hot stove here in Major League Baseball. And one that kind of hurt some Brewers fans after the article that was written about a month ago from our friends at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Wade Miley signing with the Reds, not the Brewers, on a minor league deal. $2.5 million guaranteed on a prorated salary. It can go up to $4 million with incentives. He has a June 1st opt-out if he is still in the minor leagues. Wade believes he'll be able to pitch again by May. That will be a 13-month recovery, and he's been not shy about the fact that he wants to just blow it out. You know, he's not trying to rush, or he's not trying to ease into this and like preserve the rest of his career, right? Maybe some pitchers would do, like maybe what you would expect Robert Gasser to be doing, to be more like a 14 to 16-month timeline to make sure that you're fully healthy before you return to competition. Wade knows this is it, right? This is his last chance to keep on pitching in Major League Baseball. And some Brewers fans are thinking, well, wait a minute, $2.5 million, why couldn't the Brewers sign him? I understand that sentiment. I really do. And it's a little puzzling for a moment, but then you see the $4 million incentive, and also, quite frankly, I don't think he's going to make it to $4 million even if he, pitches into May. He's getting a $1,000 bonus per inning pitch. I mean, to him to get to $1.5 million in bonuses would require him to throw 150 innings, which I don't think Wade's throwing 150 innings coming off of Tommy John surgery. But nonetheless, you need to have the depth and a path for him. And quite frankly, with all the love and respect in the world for Wade, and I loved his leadership and the way that he was able to bring a lot of young pitchers under his arm, the whole point is for him to pitch for you, right? And the Brewers right now on their depth chart, they want to give the innings to D.L. Hall, to Aaron Ashby, to Jacob Mizorowski, to Chad Patrick, to Logan Henderson, to these guys that are, quite frankly, ahead of him on the depth chart. And this is not how the Brewers operate, by just throwing money, and because it's your old friend in Wade Miley, and kind of a big year for Brandon Woodruff to make sure he's healthy and paying off this investment of paying for him not to pitch for you for a year to then hopefully pitch for you here in 2025. More on Woody a little bit later. But yes, I understand the sting of not having Wade Miley return. Nonetheless, I'm happy for the old mule getting one last chance. And I'm calling him the old mule because that's what Pat Murphy called him, because Wade Miley made an offhanded joke that, as a joke that at Pat Murphy's age, which is not that old, and now Murph would always joke that, well, he's pushing 50, as in Wade Miley, which he's not. But I always enjoyed their relationship, and maybe we'll see Wade Miley at some point at the ballpark later this summer. Next up, also speaking of the Reds, quietly, really good bullpen move. Taylor Rogers, former Brewer, we all know how that ended. But Taylor Rogers going from the Giants to the Reds as well, helping out their bullpen, and sneaky good bullpen. Alexis Diaz, I still think they need a little bit more help there in the back end. Their bullpen was one of the worst units in baseball a year ago, but they're trying to help out with that. And then also another bullpen move that happened was Ryan Presley to the Cubs. They have their closer. And one of the complaints that I have been having for years about the Cubs is, how do these guys not have a closer? You know, they've had options in the past, but now Ryan Pressly is a bona fide closer, and he's a great pitcher. And this makes the Central a little more exciting. I understand the apprehension from some fans thinking, well, the Brewers aren't doing anything. Everybody else is doing something. Well, I get it, but we'll talk about that in the FAQs. The Brewers bullpen especially, everyone's still chasing the Brewers for the second best bullpen of the division. I will say, I'm a massive fan of Porter Hodge down in the Cubs. I think that kid is going to come on the scene hard this season for Chicago. So look out for that name this year. So the Cubs signed a closer in Ryan Pressly. Jerks and Profar going to the Braves. I thought Profar would have been a really good fit for somebody like the Pirates, but the Pirates continue to confound me. I don't understand it, but good deal for the Braves to get Profar and get a little bit of right-handed help too. And then finally, Ha-Seong Kim, and this was one that I really wanted to hammer home. Ha-Seong Kim going to the Rays. And this one, I don't know why it struck a nerve with me of some folks really thinking that the Brewers were going to get Ha-Seong Kim, including yours truly. But when I saw the number, I fell out of my chair. $13 million for a guy with a torn labrum that isn't going to play until May in the best case scenario. There is no way the Brewers would ever make a deal like that. No chance, especially when you have as many infielders on the 40-man roster as they currently have. $13 million for this year with an opt-out, and another $2 million in incentives for him to be making nearly as much as Rhys Hoskins with a lot more injury concern. It did not make sense for me. I wish him all the best. I wish the Rays all the best. But the Rays kind of had to overdo the money because they're playing in a minor league ballpark. They're playing at a spring training facility this year. So good for Ha-Seong Kim to get the money. There was no way the Brewers were going to do something like that. And then furthermore, if he didn't opt in, if he doesn't, or if he opts in, he doesn't opt out. He's got $16 million coming next season. He's going to opt in. So good for Ha-Seong Kim's agent to get that deal done with the Tampa Bay Rays. All right, speaking of infield, speaking of position players, let's get to the frequently asked questions, starting with position players. Who the heck's going to be on third? Who's going to be the shortstop, Tom? Let's try to give our best answers to that coming up next on WTMJ.
Refresh your home today with window images, blinds, and shades from Menards. We have everything you need to update your window treatments. We carry vinyl, aluminum, and faux wood blinds, cellular shades, and more. Plus, get them cut to width in store for free. Get white faux wood blinds starting at just $22.99. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for all the great deals happening now. Sale prices good through February 2nd.
Save big money at Menards.
Winning in the NFL comes down to the basics, blocking and tackling. In retirement, protection and income are the keys to success. Simply put, if you're nearing or in retirement, you can't afford a stock market crash. Hi, I'm Mitch Lyons. Having played on winning teams with the Steelers and Falcons, studying game film was a key to success. Now I'm a best-selling author and star in a new groundbreaking documentary film called The Retirement Deception. It unveils how the Wall Street machine has been deceiving us for decades and proves you don't need to risk your nest egg in the market to have the retirement you deserve. This film shows you exactly how to protect your retirement from stock market drops and produce more income than you thought possible. I want you to watch this film for free. Call today for your free copy of The Retirement Deception. I think you would agree 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is at least worth a phone call to watch this film and see how you can improve your retirement. Call today to speak with an all-pro retirement specialist to get your free copy of The Retirement Deception. Call 844-763-2837. That's 844-763-2837. MitchLyonsWealth.com. Your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement.
WTMJ's Vince Vitrano talking with Dr. Mike Nolte at Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin. Doc, a lot of people are hesitant to visit a surgeon for spine care.
The good news is that the vast majority of patients that I see and the majority of conditions that I can see can be successfully treated without surgery. And I don't want patients to think that just because you're seeing a spine surgeon means that you're going to be signing up for surgery. We talk about, in my clinic, kind of a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C.
Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin, there is a difference. orthowisconsin.com.
It's Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Let's talk position players, shall we? And some of the questions facing the Brewers right now. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Welcome back to Brewers Weekly. 855-616-1620 is the Siding Unlimited WTMJ talk and text line. Again, 855-616-1620. Meanwhile, let's get to the phone lines. Charlie and Oshkosh, you're live here on Brewers Weekly.
Hi, Dominic. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
probably one of your frequently asked questions. Disappointing that the Brewers have been so quiet. We're almost into February, a couple of weeks of training camp. But just a thought, it seems like they have to get somebody at third base. They got to do something. Do you think they're waiting for maybe Alonso to sign? If he would sign with the Mets, it might open up a trade with Beatty, the young third baseman, or waiting for Bregman to sign somewhere that whatever team he goes to might open up a trade possibility there. Or what do you think of just getting Paul DeJong at third base for a little stability there?
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dominic, and I'll listen to you on the radio. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Charlie. Good insight there as well. This was one of my topics here in this segment and one for later of one of my FAQs, and I saw the tweet asking about Paul DeJong, like what would he do? Now, remember, DeJong, 24 homers at 31 years old. Awesome. No-brainer, right? Well, he also struck out more than 150 times last season. Strikeout rate well north of 30%. That's what holds me back on that, and especially if he's going to be in a role where he's not playing every day, given what the Brewers have in the pipeline, is cheaper than what Paul DeJong would be. Yes, less power, but maybe a little more reliability when it comes to defense, because third base is not his natural position. He's lost a step at shortstop, but I understand where Paul DeJong comes in, but I think half of the Brewers fans, would side with you, Charlie, and say, like, well, what's the harm of getting a Paul DeJong? And then the other half of Brewers fans would say, like, why do we keep going for the Paul DeJongs of the world? With respect to Paul. But what I'm trying to say is, why is that the barrel that the Brewers are fishing out of when you've got players in your pipeline that you want to see? Why do you want to give a 1-year stopgap to Paul DeJong when you've got players that you want to see, like a Caleb Durbin, like an Oliver Dunn, maybe one day like a Brock Wilken? So it's something that you weigh the pros and cons, and I think for me, I lean to staying in-house at third base, which leads me to, well, what's the left side of the infield going to look like? And I repeat over and over again, Sal Frelick is going to be a candidate to play third base for the Brewers. I know some folks think that is crazy, but Sal Frelick is going to be considered on the infield once again, whether it's third, whether it's second, whatever the Brewers decide to do with that left side, Sal is going to be a candidate. And quite frankly, I'm here to give it a shot. And here's why. When you have the ability to have Sal Frelick in the lineup with Garrett, with Jackson, with Yelly, here's a potential starting lineup against a right-handed pitcher if they roll like we think they're going to roll, if Sal, let's say, wins the third base job. Bryce Harang leading off, right? He's at second base. Jackson Chourio hitting second. He's going to play right field. Batting third, Christian Yelich, and he gets to stay happy playing left field. But you can also DH him if you want to, especially coming off of back surgery. Batting cleanup, William Contreras, he's behind the plate. Batting fifth, Garrett Mitchell, he's in center. The sixth spot is Rhys Hoskins, he's at first base. Then I've got Sal hitting seventh, he's at third. Now you can interchange this by maybe putting Chourio in left, Sal in right, and Yelly DHing, and then you insert in somebody else at third base, whether that's a Tyler Black, whether that's a Caleb Durbin, that remains to be seen. But that 8th spot can be that floating spot. Right now in this lineup, I had Tyler Black as a designated hitter. And then finally, Joey Ortiz is my shortstop, and he's batting 9th in my lineup. That's how I see things playing out here on January 30th. Could I be wrong? Absolutely, I could be wrong, and I will be wrong many times over. But I think that's how I see it shaking out. Sal's going to be seriously considered at third base. With that being said, Joey Ortiz is my shortstop. I think that's his natural position. He got the looks there last season when Willie was coming out of games and blowouts or whatever. I think Joey's your shortstop. I really do believe that. We could be wrong, and that's something that happens. Another question that comes up often is Yelly going to DH more this season? I think absolutely yes. You're a full year under the belt now for Rhys Hoskins. He's going to have to play a lot more first base this season. And maybe on the days that he DHs, Yelly has to play defense, and then maybe Tyler Black is playing first base. There are options the Brewers to choose from when it comes to their DH and first base pairing. But yes, Yelly will be DHing, I think, more this season, especially if the Sal Frelick on the infield experiment does not work out. With that being said, I'm excited to see Caleb Durbin, too, and see a healthy Oliver Dunn again. And remember, Oliver Dunn's got options. Caleb Durbin's got options. You have guys that you can choose from to move them up and down and figure out what you have. And I'll get to the Bregman thing in our last segment later on, but how I feel about the third base market and the Pete Alonso market definitely impacts the Brewers, but it's kind of a bigger conversation than all of that. Great question from Charlie. This text from Mike in Colorado, more shifting over to the Bob Uecker tributes from last week. Sadly, Bob has moved up to the big ballpark in the sky. We'll miss him so much and certainly not be the same listening to the Brewers on the radio this season. Every time I went to the ballpark, whether it was at Old County Stadium or at Coors Field, where Mike currently lives in Colorado, looking up for Bob in the press box was one of the first things I did when we arrived at our seats. Bob was always easy to spot because of his silver white hair. Wouldn't surprise me if Bob convinces God to sprinkle a little magic down on Milwaukee and the Brewers can finally win the World Series. Appreciate that text, Mike. Let's take a breather. Let's shift and go over to the pitching side of the FAQ section, and then we'll get into some of the fan stuff and what my frequently asked questions are to the Brewers brass coming up here on WTMJ.
Monica, we've got to hand it to you.
You and the design team have outdone yourselves.
Are you talking about the One Collection?
Those rings say you are the one.
And they say it symbolically.
Describe the symbols.
Every ring in the One Collection should be presented with a special ritual.
What would that ritual be?
You pick up her left hand and you place a kiss on her ring finger.
Rick, you never told me about that part.
Then you show her the tiny red diamond, flush mounted inside the ring, that will forever be in contact with her finger.
Why is it red?
Because that's when the giver says to the one, wherever you go, my heart goes with you.
I give you this kiss. I give you my heart.
The red diamond is a secret symbol of that sacred moment.
The center diamond on the outside of the ring is for the whole world to see.
But the tiny red created diamond inside the ring is only for the two of them.
The One Collection of engagement rings is available exclusively at Kessler's.
To find the Kessler's nearest you,
visit KesslersDiamonds.com.
Between all the holiday parties,
weekend tailgates,
and family get-togethers,
we've been overindulging a little more than usual over the holidays. But now, we are starting the new year off on a healthier note by taking active liver supplements from New Nordic every day.
Active Liver contains a powerful blend of turmeric, milk thistle, and globe artichoke extract, all natural ingredients that help protect the liver so that it can protect you from toxins. It's like giving my body a daily detox. I've never felt better, and my energy is through the roof.
And my doctor is already impressed with how much better my numbers are looking. So if better health, more energy, and detoxing your body are some of your priorities this year, get Active Liver today and start the year off knowing you're giving your liver some well-deserved relief.
Active Liver is available in both tablets and as a delicious gummy. You can find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS or online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com.
Traffic is brought to you by Rejuvenix, your non-surgical joint therapy experts.
Get the beat of the Bucks straight from a fan favorite and Bucks legend.
Welcome to the fantastic voyage. Marcus Johnson, the captain of this vessel.
Tap into Here District with Marcus Johnson, a Bucks Plus audio production.
My first mate, Chris Johnson, the only father and son tandem.
Your weekly pulse on the Milwaukee Bucks and conversations with the biggest names in basketball. This week on the pod, Marcus and Chris are joined by NBA and Bucks champion George Hill. Find Here District now on Bucks.com/plus, the Bucks app, or wherever you get your podcast.
A buck doesn't buy much unless you're spending it at Griffin. For just $1 over cost, you can buy brand new tires from us. This is Jim Griffin. Any major brand, $1 over our cost with free tire repair and lifetime rotation. We'll even show you the invoice to prove it. Our only requirements, we put them on for you. Buy one or the whole set. The dollar deal from Griffin. Milwaukee, Waukesha, Fort Atkinson, and Jefferson. Griffin. The buck stops here. The deals on tires don't. That's Griffin.
Not combinable with other tire offers. It's Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Running a little tight on time here tonight. One of my last shows in the studio for a little while here as we get ready. Next week will be taped. And then the following week, I believe, will be my last studio show. And then it's spring training time here on WTMJ. I'm Dominic Cotroneo, Brewers Weekly going to the top of the hour. I got one more break to hit, too. But real quick, I want to talk a little bit of the pitcher stuff that I keep hearing about and the questions that I get there. And the number one thing is about Brandon Woodruff. Is he healthy? Is he going to pitch on the opening day roster? Is he going to be available for opening day? And I'll repeat what I said a couple of weeks ago here. The Brewers aren't relying on Brandon Woodruff to be the Brandon Woodruff of 2021 when he was fifth in Cy Young voting. Would that guy be nice? Absolutely. I'm not complaining and would love to have that walk through the door. But the fact of the matter is, a major shoulder surgery is going to take time to recover. And while he, yes, took the whole year off last season and then the off season, obviously, he needs to find the new the new tension and the new how his body reacts to fatigue and how his body reacts to the punishing nature of being a pitcher. And we won't know that answer definitively at the end of March because they want to probably continue to build him up slowly and use him as a fourth or fifth starter. And maybe even the Brewers consider opening the season with a six-man rotation to give a little extra time for Brandon Woodruff to recover. I think that's a legitimate case to make sure that they give Woody the best chance possible to be healthy for the entirety of the season. I'd rather him come out slow and work his way up than come out too hot and then he's not available in the second half of the season. That's how I feel about it, and I think that's how the Brewers are going to protect their investment in Brandon Woodruff. It's a fair question, though. Then the next most common asked, and I've already kind of answered this earlier in the program, are Aaron Ashby and DL Hall going to be starters? I think the answer is unequivocally yes, especially for this season. Because when you look beyond Aaron Savali, right? Savali's the one and done on this team, and Nestor Cortez Jr. Those are the only two guys that are one and done on this team right now. You've got the multi-year commitment already given to Aaron Ashby, so that kind of gives an edge to him. DL Hall has one option year remaining. Remember, we talked about that all last season on how the Brewers had to, carefully tread with his option to make sure he spent less than 20 days in the minors, so it didn't count as an option year and that sort of thing. But because he has that option year, if the Brewers' rotation is full for some reason, he can continue to stay on time in AAA and continue to refine his stuff, or he can make it easier and just take a spot coming out of spring training, or maybe the Brewers have somebody flare up during spring training where they have to slow things down, and one of these guys will be ready to step in. Remember last year, had Bryce Wilson stretched out just in case. I feel like Ashby and Hall will continue to be stretched out as starters, and it has been indicated as such from Matt Arnold and the Brewers brass that they see both of them as starters, at least at the beginning of spring training. Is Brian Hudson back? What do the Brewers think with him? Absolutely. He's in my opening day bullpen. He is somebody that is going to be getting leverage innings again. It's hard to pitch again, learn how your body responds to the abuses of pitching every other day as a reliever in high leverage innings. Brian learned a lot about that. I'm excited to see what he has for next season. So who's in my bullpen right now? Well, Trevor McGill's the closer. Let's make that very clear. Trevor McGill is my closer. I've got Yoel Payamps. I've got Brian Hudson. I've got Jared Koenig. I've got Nick Mears. I've got Abner Uribe. Don't forget Connor Thomas, left-handed. He's a swingman. He was in the Rule 5 draft. And then I've also got Craig Yoho making my team. I'm excited to see Craig Yoho, a non-roster invitee. We need to be added to the 40-man. But remember the name, Craig Yoho. I know I had to fly through that segment. Got to take my last break. Be back with more after this of some of the fan tweets that came in here. And what do we think about what's going on with this market with Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman? That after this on WTMJ.
Whether it's 24/7 emergency service or it's just time to replace your furnace, at Quality we'll be out so fast you won't even notice the heat being off. And if you're buying a high-efficiency furnace from Armstrong or Carrier, you'll qualify for state and federal tax rebates that'll pay for a big chunk of the cost. This is Anthony Zanevsky from Quality, where you'll get the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. If you like being prepared like I do, you know the value of a generator. When the power goes out, it's a terrible inconvenience. And that's why Quality installs effortless whole home generators that give you power when everybody else's is out. This is Anthony Zanevsky from Quality, where you'll get the signature service you deserve and whole home generators that make power outage fears subside.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
Get started with your no-hassle refi checkup by clicking on the blue button at Accunet.com.
When you work at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores, you'll be helping us help others. There are many that need our help, and we need your help to carry out our mission. St. Vincent de Paul is always looking for part-time team members. You'll get competitive pay, benefits, and flexibility in scheduling. So apply online at svdpmilw.org or stop by Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, or 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Craft your Brewers mini plan for the 2025 season, featuring all new 6-packs and 12-packs. Get in on the action with great ticket rates, marquee matchups, and priority seating. Plus, you'll get a limited edition Brewers Crowler with each 12-pack or pair of 6-packs. Looking to customize your games to fit your schedule? Build your own ticket plan options are also available. Pick the plan for you at brewers.com/ticket finder.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station. This is Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Got a little less than 3 minutes here, so I got to go rapid fire here as we wrap up the program on WTMJ. First and foremost, I don't want to devolve this into a money talk thing, but also at the end of the show, I don't have time to do so. But the fact that Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso are still available with 2 weeks left, this happens every year. It usually takes a minute, and I get that. I think that's crazy. And the thing that frustrates me about the current status of baseball is because money is at the big part of it, and why a team like the Dodgers can spend like they can, and the Yankees. You know, the big spenders this year have been the Yankees and Dodgers like one would expect. But you would think that with maybe a better revenue sharing system, that the Brewers would have natural access to somebody like Alex Bregman, who would be an easy fit on this team. They need a left side infielder, whether it's a shortstop or a third baseman. But to Bregman's credit, he wants X number of years, and the Brewers and other teams, for that matter, not just the Brewers, are hesitant to give him that number or that X number of years, whatever it may be. I'm just shocked that it's taken long, because Bregman would be a great fit here. Maybe somehow the Brewers swoop in and give him like that Carlos Correa deal from a couple years ago, where all the medicals kind of went shoddy and you sign him to a 1-year deal and say, prove it year, then he can go try free agency again. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it would be really cool if it did. But I'm just shocked that it's taken this long. A couple of questions that came in from fans. Platoon at third base, Durbin, Black, Dunn. Who do you see happening there? I don't think Tyler Black is going to be considered at third base. I think it is between Durbin and Dunn and Monasterio at this juncture in the offseason. I think Tyler Black is going to be seen more as a first baseman and utility outfielder for the Brewers heading into 2025. Next up, why haven't the Brewers signed that many free agents? Well, there hasn't been many consequential free agents signed by the Brewers, but also so much of their core hasn't even reached arbitration yet. So you want to give these young kids a shot. So much of this team doesn't even reach arbitration until the end of next season. So you're not in a rush to spend money when you've got all these guys under team control as long as you do. And then finally, what's up with Nolan Arenado? How has he not been traded yet? How have the Yankees not acquired him yet? How is Ryan Helsley going to go back to the Cardinals? All of these things make me scratch my head, and maybe these are things we'll talk about in next week's Brewers Weekly. So, ran out of time today. It's been a minute since we've had to do a traditional 1-hour show, but my thanks to our producer, Nate Rilling. I'm Dom Cotroneo. We say good night and keep on swinging.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers, where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom-quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield.